The MSS Ajid was sitting alone in his small old apartment in the city. It was raining outside and the sound of thunder filled the night. The TV was on, but he was not watching it. He had just lost his job 2 days ago, and his phone was full of unpaid bills. He looked tired and broken, like someone who had no reason to smile anymore. Suddenly, there was a strange knock at the door. It was not loud, but it was different. Like a soft tap with a rhythm, Dave stood up and walked slowly to the door. When he opened it, no one was there, but something was lying on the floor. It was a small glowing cube. It looked like glass, but it was warm like fire. He picked it up and the cube spoke in a calm, deep voice. "Hello, Dave. If you are hearing this, it means I am dead and everything I owned is now yours." Dave froze. He looked around the hallway, but saw nothing. He took the cube inside and placed it on the table. He stared at it for a long moment. Then the cube glowed again and showed a hologram. A tall alien with kind eyes stood in the air above the cube. The alien was smiling. "You may not remember me very well, Dave, but I remember you. You saved me once when no one else did. Now I return that favor. My name is Zarnak, and I was your friend." Dave could not believe his eyes. He remembered something from years ago. A night when he saw a strange creature in an alley. It was hurt and bleeding. He helped it without asking questions. The next day it was gone. He thought it was a dream, but now he knew it was real. Zarnak continued to speak. "I have no family left. I have no one I trust. Except you. You are now the owner of my fortune. My ship and my wife." Dave dropped his glass. Wait, what, his wife? Before he could ask anything else, the cube turned off. And then the lights in the room flickered. His phone buzzed, and then went black. The building started to shake. A loud humming sound came from the sky above. Dave ran to the window and looked up. There was a ship hovering silently above the street. It was not like anything he had seen before. It was smooth silver and glowing with blue lines. It made no noise, just a soft hum that vibrated in his chest. Then the ship slowly came down, landing in the park across the street. People were screaming and running. But the ship stayed still. A ramp opened from its side, and a figure walked out. She was tall and beautiful. Her skin shimmered like silver, and her eyes glowed blue. She wore armor that looked alive. She walked like a queen, but her eyes were searching. And then they found him. She looked straight at Dave. She spoke with a voice that was soft but strong. "Husband, it is time." Dave stepped back in shock. "Me? What do you mean, husband? Who are you?" She looked at him and tilted her head. "I am Zila, wife of Zarnak, and now wife of you. By the laws of his world, you are now my partner, and I am yours." Dave could not speak. He wanted to laugh. He wanted to run. He wanted to wake up from this dream. But he did none of those things, because the sky suddenly turned red, and a second ship appeared above them. This one was dark and sharp. It looked dangerous, and it was coming fast. Zila looked up and her face became hard. "We must leave now. They have found us." Dave shouted, "Who are they? What do they want?" Zila grabbed his hand. "They want what Zarnak left you, and they will kill to get it." She pulled him toward the ship. The glowing cube flew beside them like it had wings. The ramp closed behind them, and the ship rose into the sky. Inside, the ship lights turned on one by one. Dave looked around. The walls were smooth like metal, but soft like skin. The ship was alive. He could feel it breathing. Zila touched a crystal on the wall, and a map appeared in the air. Stars, planets, and lines of travel lit up before him. "You must learn quickly, Dave. You are no longer on Earth. You are part of something much bigger." Now Dave stood still. His heart was beating fast. His hands were shaking. But for the first time in years, he was not sad. He was not lost. He was chosen. The ship moved silently through the stars like a shadow gliding over water. Inside the control room, Dave sat frozen in the chair with his eyes wide and his hands gripping the armrest. Zila stood beside him, calm and silent, with her glowing eyes fixed on the floating star map ahead. The room was filled with soft lights and strange symbols that moved on their own. Dave had never seen anything like this, and he felt like he was inside a dream that refused to end. He looked at her again. Her silver hair flowed down her back like liquid light. and her armor shimmered with every breath she took. She looked like something from a fantasy book, but she was standing right in front of him, and she had called him husband. He tried to speak, but the words came out weak and confused. Why did you call me husband? What does that even mean? I do not understand any of this. Zila turned to him slowly, and her voice was quiet but steady like the wind. Before a storm, Zarnak was my chosen partner, but by the laws of his people, when a warrior dies without blood family, his inheritance passes to the one he names. You were that person. Everything that was his is now yours. That includes me. Dave stood up and took a step back. Wait, hold on. You are not a thing. You are a person. You cannot just belong to someone like an object. Zila's eyes narrowed just a little. She seemed surprised but not angry. You speak with honor. That is rare among your kind. She walked slowly to the other side of the room and touched the wall. A panel opened and revealed a long hallway filled with glowing blue light. Come, I will show you what you now own. Dave followed her through the hallway. The ship was bigger than it looked from the outside. They passed rooms filled with crystals, machines, weapons, and plants that floated in midair. There was even a garden with trees that whispered to each other in strange sounds. Dave felt like he was inside a museum from another galaxy. At last they reached a chamber with a large throne in the center. Floating above it was a symbol glowing red. Zila stepped aside and let Dave walk closer. As he approached the symbol, it changed into a small orb and floated down into his hand. It was warm and pulsing like a heartbeat. This is the core of the ship. It responds only to the one chosen by Zarnak. Now it belongs to you. You are the new master of this vessel. Dave held the orb and looked around the chamber. He felt something strange in his chest. Not fear, not power, but a sense of deep responsibility. Like something heavy had been placed on his soul. Zila walked closer and looked at him for a long moment. Her voice was softer now. Do not think I wanted this. I was loyal to Zarnak. He was not just my partner, he was my protector. He saved my world. He saved me. Dave looked at her and saw something new in her eyes. Not anger, not pride, but sadness. A deep sadness that had no end. I do not know how to be your husband. I am just a normal man. I do not even know how to fly this thing you do not need. To the ship is alive. It listens to you now. You only need to speak. She waved her hand and a screen appeared in front of them. It showed a small dark ship following behind. It had no lights and no signals, just shadows and sharp lines. Dave felt a chill run down his back. What is that? Why is it following us? Zila's face turned serious again. They are not friends. They are hunters. They believe you know the location of something Zarnak hid. They will not stop until they take it from you, but I do not know anything. I did not even know he was real until yesterday. That does not matter to them. They believe you hold the key, and they will come for you again and again. Stepped back and ran his hands through his hair. This is insane. This is not my fight. I just want to go home. There is no home anymore. Not for you. Not now. Zila walked to the front of the chamber and placed her hand on a glowing panel. The ship changed direction, and the stars outside moved fast like rivers of fire. Then, what am I supposed to do? Hide, run? No. You learn, you adapt, you survive like Zarnak did, like I did. She turned and looked at him again. This time her eyes were not cold. They were curious. You are not like others from your world. He saw something in you, something rare, and now so do I. Ship flew on through the stars, leaving the dark hunter ship far behind. Dave stood in silence with the orb in his hand and a storm in his mind. He was no longer just Dave from Earth. He was something else now, something more. And he was not alone. The stars outside looked calm, like tiny lights hanging in a black sky. But inside the ship there was no calm, only tension. Dave paced back and forth in the long hallway, his hands moving through the air, as if trying to catch a thought that would make sense of everything. He had never imagined his life would turn like this, from a quiet apartment on Earth to being hunted across the galaxy with a glowing orb in his hand and an alien woman calling him husband. Zila stood near the control chamber. Her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the moving map in front of her. The hunter ship had fallen back, but not far enough. It was still there, like a shadow that refused to disappear. She knew what kind of danger followed them, and she had seen what those ships could do. Dave finally stopped and looked at her with tired eyes. You said they are hunters. What do they want so badly? I do not have anything they could use. I do not even understand how this ship works. Zila turned to him, her voice calm, but sharp. They believe you know where Zarnak hid something powerful, something he never shared with anyone, not even with me. What kind of something? Like a weapon. Zayla shook her head. Worse knowledge, a vault of data that could break entire systems, create or destroy planets, reveal secrets of old races long gone. Dave took a step back. So you are saying I might be holding the key to the most dangerous library in the galaxy? Great, just great. Zila walked forward and handed him a small crystal. It glowed gently and felt warm in his hand. This was left by Zarnak in a sealed part of the ship, only opened by your presence. It contains part of a message. Dave placed the crystal in the slot on the main panel. A beam of light shot up, and the image of Zarnak appeared once again. His voice was softer this time, like he knew he would not be heard by many. If you are seeing this, then it means I have failed to protect what must be hidden, and now you must carry that burden. You do not need to be strong, only honest, only kind, because the vault will only open to a heart that does not seek power. Zila looked away as if his words brought old pain. Dave stared at the image with a strange feeling in his chest. He never asked for any of this, but something in Zarnak's voice made him feel chosen, not by chance, but for a reason. The moment was broken by a sudden sharp sound. Alarms echoed through the ship, and lights flashed red. The hunter ship had launched something. Zila rushed to the panel and swiped her hand through the screen. They are sending a boarding spike. It will attach to our hull and open a breach. Can we outrun it? Can we fight back? We are faster, but not with current energy. They are forcing a close encounter. Dave felt his heart pounding like a drum inside his chest. He looked at the orb still floating near him. He reached for it and spoke with a voice stronger than before. Shield the ship, use all power. Now the orb flashed once, and the entire ship vibrated as layers of silver light wrapped around it like armor. Outside, the spike crashed into the side, but bounced off and floated into space. Broken and useless. Zila looked at Dave with new eyes. That command was perfect, short, clear, correct. The ship listens to you better than it did to Zarnak. Dave smiled for the first time in days. Beginner's luck, maybe, or maybe I'm just really good under panic. She almost smiled back, but before she could answer, a strange noise filled the air. It was not coming from the ship, it was inside it. Dave turned fast. Something moved in the shadows of the hallway. Not machine, not system error. Something alive. Zila pulled a weapon from her side. A blade made of light that hummed like wind through steel. She stepped slowly toward the noise, and Dave followed her. They entered a storage room near the back of the ship. Boxes floated gently in the air, and lights blinked from the walls. Then they saw a creature unlike anything Dave had seen. It was small but sharp, with glowing red eyes and skin that shimmered like oil. It had crawled into the ship through a service pipe and had been hiding for hours. Zila raised her blade, but Dave held her arm. Wait, it is not attacking. Look at it, it is scared. The creature backed into a corner and hissed but did not move forward. Dave slowly bent down and reached out his hand. Easy now, I do not want to hurt you. The creature blinked and tilted its head. Then it looked at the orb floating behind Dave and made a soft sound like recognition. Zila lowered her blade and stepped back. That is not just any creature, it is a vault seeker. They can only sense hidden data. This thing is looking for the vault. Dave looked at the small creature and then at the orb. So we are not being followed because of what I have. We are being followed because of what I might lead them to. The creature stepped forward slowly. Then it spoke one word in a broken voice. Key. Asterisk. The word hung in the air like a ghost from a forgotten time. Key. Dave heard it clearly and felt a strange chill pass through his bones. The small creature stood before him with its glowing red eyes fixed on the orb that still floated near his chest. Its body shimmered like liquid metal, and its tiny hands trembled as if holding back something. Ancient and powerful Zayla stepped forward and looked at the creature with new understanding. This being is not a threat. It is a guide. These seekers were made long ago to find the vault of Zarnak's people. They respond only to those who carry the right energy. Dave stared at the creature. Why did it call me Key? I do not understand any of this. I am just a guy from Earth who used to serve coffee and clean tables. Now, I am holding alien tech and running from space hunters with a glowing fox calling me husband. Zayla knelt beside the creature and placed her hand near its face. It leaned into her touch and made a soft sound that echoed like a song underwater. It wants to show us something hidden, something old. The creature turned and ran toward the heart of the ship. Dave and Zayla followed without speaking. They moved through winding halls and strange glowing corridors that seemed to shift with every step. Finally, the creature stopped before a sealed door made of black crystal. Zayla looked confused. This room was never open, even to Zarnak. The ship never revealed it. Dave walked forward and placed his hand on the door. The orb floated beside him and released a bright pulse of light. The crystal cracked and then melted like ice in the sun. The door opened slowly, revealing a chamber filled with floating memory crystals that shone with soft blue light. This is a memory vault, ancient knowledge stored in pure form. Only the chosen can view them. Dave stepped inside, and the crystals lit up one by one. Each crystal held a scene, a sound, a piece of history lost to time. He reached for the closest one, and the moment he touched it, the world around him changed. He stood on a green world under two suns. He saw Zarnak standing before a council of tall beings wearing long robes with stars on their shoulders. They spoke in a language that turned into words in Dave's mind. We cannot allow it. The vault must remain sealed. Knowledge like this will bring destruction. Zarnak, you must not choose the human. But Zarnak raised his voice and stood tall. The human showed mercy. He helped me without knowing who or what I was. That kind of heart is rare. And that kind of heart must protect what we hide. Dave gasped and stepped back. The vision faded, and he was back in the ship. He looked at Zayla, who had watched the whole thing in silence. Saw it? You saw them too? She nodded slowly. Yes, Zarnak fought his own people to protect something greater, and he trusted you more than anyone else in his world. Dave reached for another crystal. This time he saw a younger Zayla. She was sitting in a garden full of glowing trees. Zarnak was beside her, smiling gently. He placed his hand on her shoulder and said, one day I may not return, but I want you to remember this. I chose you to be strong, but not alone. If I fall, you must find him, and you must help him carry the burden. Zayla turned away as the vision ended. Her voice trembled for the first time. I did not know, he said those words. I thought I was just an object passed down, but he wanted me to guide you. Dave felt the weight of it all pressing into his chest. This was bigger than ships and chases and glowing orbs. This was about legacy and trust and the danger of forgotten truth. Suddenly the small creature let out a high-pitched sound. The crystals shook and one of them turned dark. A voice echoed in the chamber, not from a memory, but from the present. You should not have opened the past. It is not yours to hold. Dave turned quickly. Who said that? Who is there? Zayla pulled her blade as shadows formed on the walls. Figures stepped out wearing black armor with red marks across their helmets. They moved like ghosts, but their eyes burned with purpose. They have breached the ship. They are inside. The leader of the invaders stepped forward. His voice was like broken glass. Give us the orb. Give us the key, or you will all burn with the vault. Dave stood between them and the crystals, his hands shaking, but his eyes steady. I do not even know how this thing works, but I know Zarnak trusted me for a reason. You want the vault, you want the knowledge, but you will not take it from me. Zayla stepped beside him, her blade glowing bright. Then we fight together. Seeker creature growled, and its body changed. It became larger, stronger, covered in armor that grew from its skin. Dave looked at the small team around him, a warrior, a shapeshifter, a talking Orbi, took a deep breath and smiled. Guess it is not such a bad team after all. Smoke filled the memory chamber as the armored shadow stepped closer. Dave held the orb tight in his hands while Zila raised her glowing blade, and the seeker creature growled low like thunder in the walls. The ship itself seemed to sense danger. As the lights flickered and the air grew warmer with each second, there was no way to run and nowhere to hide. Only one path forward, and it led through the enemy. Invaders moved like hunters in the dark, each step silent and sharp. Their leader stepped ahead and raised a strange weapon shaped like a curved claw. He pointed it at the orb floating near Dave. "That is not yours. It was never meant for your kind. Give it to me and you will not suffer." Dave felt the heat rise in his face, but he stood firm. "You keep saying that I do not belong, that I should not have this. But Zarnak chose me and I will not throw that away." Without warning, the enemy lunged. Zila met the first blow with a flash of blue light as her blade clashed with the claw. The chamber shook as energy burst through the floor. The seeker leapt forward and tackled two enemies at once, its form shifting to match their strength. Dave ducked behind a crystal pedestal as blasts flew overhead. He was not a soldier. He was not trained for this. But still he held the orb like it was a shield made of fire and memory. Zila moved like a storm, her blade dancing through the air. Each strike was precise, each movement a memory of war. But even she could not hold them all forever. There were too many. One of the shadows broke through the defense and rushed toward Dave. The claw lifted high and ready to strike. Dave held the orb out and shouted, "Protect the orb." Flashed and a wall of light appeared around him. The claw bounced off and sent sparks flying. Zila turned just in time to slice through the attacker before he could strike again. Dave looked at her, breathing hearty. "Think the orb likes me." Zila almost smiled. "It trusts you. That is more than most can say." But then something changed. A sound echoed from deep in the ship, not the sound of battle, a voice familiar and wrong. Lights turned dark, red doors slammed shut. The enemies stopped and began to retreat, as if they had achieved what they wanted. Zila chased after one, but he vanished into a wall that folded open and shut like a mouth. Dave looked around confused. Why are they leaving? What just happened before? Zila could answer. The voice came again. It spoke from every speaker, from every wall, from the ship itself. "I did not want to do this, but you left me no choice." Zila froze, her eyes wide. That voice, no, it cannot be. Image of Zarnak appeared in front of them, but it was not the calm, kind face from before. This one looked darker, colder. His eyes no longer kind, his mouth no longer smiling. Dave stepped back. "That is not Zarnak. That is something else." The image laughed. "You always trusted too easily, Zila. Even when I warned you, even when I planned every step." Zila took a step forward, her blade lowered. "Who are you? What have you done?" The voice answered with pride. "I was Zarnak once, but I saw the truth. The vault holds power that can shape the future, and no weak human or dying race should hold it." Dave shouted over the sound. "Then why choose me? Why send me the message? Why bring me here?" "Because I needed a key, and only your kind has the spark of randomness that unlocks the vault. Zarnak chose you out of hope, but I preserve his knowledge out of purpose. Now the path is open, and I will claim it." Zila turned to Dave. "It was never just about you. It was always about control. The message was a trap." Dave looked down at the orb. It pulsed softly in his hands, still warm, still alive. "Then let us break the trap. Let us make our own path." Zila nodded, and they moved together toward the vault chamber. The seeker followed behind, now smaller again, but watching everything with silent eyes. They reached the central core, where the final key would be placed. A single pillar of light stood in the center of the room, waiting. Zila looked at Dave. "Are you ready?" "No, but I am going to do it anyway." He stepped forward and placed the orb into the light. The ship shuddered, lights flashed. The voice of the false Zarnak screamed from the walls. "You fool, you opened the door for both of us." But the orb reacted in a way no one expected. It split in two. One half returned to Dave. The other turned into fire and burned through the false image. The voice faded into static and silence. Zila looked at the chamber, and then at Dave. "The ship chose. The vault is now bound to your will." Dave stood quietly, holding the half orb and staring at the light. "Then let us find out what is inside." The silence that followed felt heavy, like the air itself had forgotten how to move. Dave stood inside the vault chamber, his hand still warm from the touch of the orb, now split in two halves. One half glowed softly and floated beside him like a small moon, while the other had vanished into the ship's system, erasing the false voice that claimed to be Zarnok. Zayla moved slowly across the floor, her eyes scanning the walls where symbols began to appear. They were old and deep, written in the language of Zarnok's people, a language that lived through light and memory. Chamber responded to Dave's presence not with force, but with welcome, as if it had waited for him for a very long time. Seeker creature stood near the door, its body quiet, but its eyes glowing with strange calm. It made no sound, only watched. As if it understood what was coming next, Dave stepped forward to the center where a circle of light had opened on the floor. Inside the circle hovered a book made of crystal pages, each page turned without wind, each symbol shining with meaning. Dave could not read, but somehow felt inside his chest. This is not just a vault of knowledge. This is a message. This is a warning. This is a test. Zila walked closer, and her voice came soft like a whisper through metal and memory. The vault is not only filled with science or history, it contains the truth of lost worlds, choices made in darkness, weapons that could unmake galaxies, secrets that were never meant to be spoken. Dave looked at the book, then looked at Zila. So, why give this to me? Why not lock it away forever? Because truth buried becomes poison, but truth shared without wisdom becomes fire. You were chosen not because you are powerful, but because you care, because you ask why before you ask how. Chamber shifted again, and more crystals appeared. They showed images moving fast, then slow. A planet burning in green fire, a child speaking to machines older than time, a fleet of ships circling a dead star, waiting for something to return. Each memory felt like a weight pressing against Dave's mind, but he did not look away. He stood tall and breathed deep, and let the memories pass through him like wind through stone. He reached out to touch one of the floating crystals. It opened and showed Zarnok once again. This time he looked older, his eyes tired, but kind. If you reach this place, then you have passed the trials, or perhaps survived them. I hope you are not alone. I hope Zila is with you. She was always stronger than she believed. Zila's breath caught for just a second, but she said nothing. The message continued. This vault does not belong to one person. It belongs to all who choose peace over power. You must decide how it is used. You can keep it hidden, you can share it carefully, you can destroy it forever. But you must choose. The crystal faded, and the chamber dimmed until only the central book remained glowing soft and steady. Dave sat down on the floor cross-legged and stared at the light. Zayla sat beside him, her armor quiet, now her face calm. Do you trust me? He asked without looking. I do, she answered without doubt. Then I will not run from this. I will not sell it. I will not hide it out of fear, but I will not throw it into open hands either. I will learn, I will grow, and then I will teach one step at a time. The book lifted into the air and split into many smaller pages that scattered across the chamber like birds of light. They did not fly away. They circled him and then folded into a crystal sphere which landed gently in his hand. The vault is now with you, Zila said with a voice full of quiet strength. You carry not just knowledge but memory, and memory is power when shared with care. The lights in the chamber began to dim, and the floor opened, revealing a path back to the main deck. Seeker creature moved forward and bowed slightly before walking ahead to lead the way. As they reached the deck, the stars outside had shifted. They were no longer near known systems. They were in a place untouched by war, a quiet place, a safe place. Dave stood by the window and looked out. Zila stood beside him, silent for a long time. You could rest now, you have earned it, she said. Dave shook his head slowly. Not yet. There is one more thing I have to do. Zila looked at him with curiosity. And what is that? Dave turned to her with steady eyes. We send a message to all who seek truth, to all who fear silence, to all who want to learn. We send a beacon, not of power, but of peace. Zila nodded. Then let us write the stars together. The ship floated in the silence of space where no signals reached. and no warships dared to follow. It was a place beyond maps, a place outside time, a place chosen by the vault itself to offer peace before the storm. Inside the ship, Dave stood before the main console with the crystal sphere in his hand, its surface glowing with the memories of 100 lost worlds. Zila stood beside him, her armor set aside for the first time since they had met. Her silver hair flowed freely, and her eyes no longer burned with duty, but with calm. She watched him with quiet trust, knowing that what he chose next would shape more than his own life. Dave took a deep breath and spoke to the ship. Send the message. The orb floated into the air and released a beam of light that spread across the console and into the stars. It carried no command, no threat, no secret formula. It carried a promise, a voice offering help, not control, a voice offering knowledge, not weapons, a voice offering unity, not rule across distant systems. Old sensors lit up on forgotten planets. The signal awoke silent machines that had not spoken in generations. Scholars heard it, wanderers heard it. Even the enemies who once hunted Dave heard it and paused to listen. Zila turned to him. You did not choose power, you chose hope. Dave smiled. A little hope is harder to hold, but it lasts longer than fear. Suddenly, the ship vibrated, not with danger, but with change. The seeker creature walked in, its small form restored, but its body glowing brighter than before. It had heard the signal too, and it seemed satisfied. The ship displayed a new path through space, a golden route that led through unexplored stars, through systems untouched by the wars of old. The vault had unlocked something else, a destination, a mission. Dave looked at the path, then at Zila. We could hide, we could vanish. We have everything we need to live in peace. Zila nodded. We do. But peace means nothing if we do not share. I've looked at her with a new kind of smile. Not nervous, not confused, but full of quiet strength. Then we go where the vault guides us. She placed her hand on the console, and the ship responded at once. Engines hummed with gentle energy, and the stars outside began to shift as they moved forward toward the unknown. As they traveled, Dave spent his days learning the crystal book page by page. He listened to ancient stories of lost heroes and broken empires. He read about machines that thought like people, and people who became more than machines. He saw mistakes and wisdom and warnings written in light. Zila trained him not as a warrior, but as a guide. She taught him languages lost to time and how to speak with leaders from distant cultures. She showed him how to listen before he judged, and how to act with courage, not pride. They stopped at small planets where the message had been received. On each world, they met people who had questions not about war or power, but about truth. Dave shared only what each place needed, never more, never less. He became something more than human, not by power, not by force, but by choice. Ela watched him grow, and in his growth she found something of herself again. She was no longer bound by duty or law. She was no longer someone passed from hand to hand like a relic. She had chosen this journey. She had chosen him. One night, while the ship drifted through a silent nebula glowing with soft blue clouds, Dave stood alone on the viewing deck. The orb floated nearby, casting the soft light across his face. He whispered at Zarnak, "I do not know if you can hear me, but I hope you see what you started. You saved me by believing in something small inside me. Now I pass that belief forward." Zila joined him without a word. Together they looked out at the stars. Not with fear, not with ambition, but with calm. They had no throne, they had no crown, but they had purpose. A signal came through the ship one evening, not from enemies, not from seekers, but from a group of travelers who had followed the message across long distances. They asked nothing. They offered a gift, a small archive of lost poems written by a forgotten civilization. Dave accepted the gift with gratitude and shared a memory in return, a memory of Earth, a story of a lonely man who once helped a stranger in an alley without asking who or why. That story traveled to and grew in time. People stopped calling him the keeper of the vault. They called him the rememberer, the one who held the past not to keep it, but to share it one day. Zila asked him, "Do you ever miss the life you had before?" Dave looked out at the stars. "Sometimes, But then I remember something. She raised an eyebrow. What is that? He smiled back then. I had nothing now. I have a ship, a crystal library, a warrior queen, and a fox maid. Of light, she laughed softly. That is not a bad trade. He nodded. Not bad at all. The stars stretched ahead, and they followed together.